We've played a good few hours of the Resident Evil 2 remake, and we're here to tell you it is scary. And we don't just mean a couple of cheap jump scares scary. There are quite a few jumps in there, but the type of terror the RE2 remake is good at is that slow, creeping dread. Tension that builds and builds, as it makes you lose your nerve, make mistakes, and run round in circles in a bit of a panic. And only some of that is down to Mr. X. Hold on to your fedoras that go weirdly well with giant trench coats. Here are 5 ways that the Resident Evil 2 remake keeps things scary. It has long been said that the inherent clunkiness of the tank controls in the original Resident Evils actually added to their tension. And while that may be true, it definitely does not mean that a modern game can or should return to that control scheme. That said, the heightened mobility of characters in later RE games, zipping around, high-kicking and suplexing zombies into the ground, gave us perhaps a little too much power. There's definitely a balance to be struck between empowering the player with the controls and yet still allowing them to feel vulnerable. The Resident Evil 2 remake has seemingly found that balance. So yeah, the controls feel intuitive and you can run around to your heart's content, but standing still improves your aim. Hold your position and aim your gun, and after a second the reticule will hone in further, allowing you to make more accurate headshots or leg shots to put a zombie out of its misery or just slow it down. Of course, the trade-off is that staying in one position for any length of time leaves you extremely open to attack from all manner of creatures bent on hunting you down. So it becomes your responsibility to weigh up the risk versus the reward. And that is very scary indeed. It's also part of the reason why it works so well that the camera zooms in so close when you're grabbed by something horrible. It's completely claustrophobic, especially when you're already cramped in tiny, oppressive corridors. It just makes you feel like the shadows are constantly bearing down on top of you. Following on from that, regular zombies felt like they took more ammo to bring down. So ammo and resource management, which to many fans has felt like a crucial part of Resident Evil games since day one, seems just as important as ever. Just your standard run-of-the-mill undead took a couple of headshots to kill, and it became apparent very quickly in the demo that you simply did not have enough ammunition to take them all down. Just like the originals, you need to pick your battles and run when you can, because there's really no place, particularly in the police station, that you're supposed to be able to clear and thus feel 100% safe in. And doors aren't as protective as they once were. Although zombies are slow and will lose interest in you fairly quickly if you keep moving, they can definitely follow you from room to room, owing to the fact that door loading screens no longer keep them from travelling from one side of the precinct to the other. This led to quite a few emergent scares for us in fact. Once when we burst through a double door and a zombie was waiting for us on the other side, and another time when we were about to go through a glass panel door and a zombie suddenly appeared on the other side before crashing straight through it and attacking us. Knowing roughly where zombies would be and therefore being able to almost guarantee a way to avoid them became part of how people would play the original RE2. But it's no longer an option in the remake. These zombies are just too unpredictable. The remake just doesn't allow you to pre-plan or game your movement like you could before. Thought you were going to save that herb or that knife for later? Think again, because all you can do is survive the moment you're in, right now.
What the hell?
Where the Resident Evil 2 remake really excels though is in creating atmosphere, or should we say, recreating the atmosphere of the original game. Well, actually, it's both. One of the brilliant things that the Resident Evil 2 remake does so well is it pays homage to the original game enough for everything to feel familiar and evoke that nostalgia for the past, without it all just being a copy-paste where nothing is a surprise and everything is predictable. The police station looks incredible and feels utterly imposing. You want to be there to marvel at it all and yet can't bear to look around the next corner. Sometimes you're stuck between wanting to push forward, yet feeling not quite ready for whatever is in the next room. The developers play with your expectations and second guess you. The monster isn't where you're expecting it to be, so you feel safe, and then you let your guard down, only for it to come along at a completely unexpected time and scare the living daylights out of you. Or a puzzle isn't how you remember it, but it builds on the past to make a new bit of clever commentary or give a nod to the lore that came before it. Or there are completely new puzzles, ones that call back on classic Resident Evil mechanics like examining items for clues or just paying attention to those finer details. Everything feels fresh and exciting and scary, but at the same time, all the important ingredients for what made Resident Evil 2 a truly special experience the first time you played it are still very much there. But also, there are brand new elements being introduced here, like Ada's EMF visualizer mechanic and a brand new playable area called the Orphanage, where players will take control of Sherry Birkin. Intriguing. Elsewhere, the more iconic enemies have been subtly reworked, and it makes them all the more terrifying. The Lickers seemed more intelligent, waiting in the shadows for opportune moments to strike and even, on one occasion, attempting to flank us. They were ultra aggressive, lunging relentlessly and following us from room to room, ensuring we never felt at ease. More than once, they made us panic shoot an acid or explosive grenade in their direction, only to miss, panic even more, and then run wildly in the other direction. That is a classic Resident Evil move, and it's incredible that, even when we know the situation so well this time around, we'd still be scared enough to make the exact same rookie mistake more than 20 years later. And then, of course, there's the Tyrant, nicknamed Mr. X by Claire Redfield in the RE2 novelization City of the Dead. This towering menace was always bearing down on us in our most recent demo, slowly following throughout the police department in an attempt to conquer and crush the life out of Claire, presumably because of a seemingly inconsequential piece of jewellery she picked up in the underground parking lot. Even when we tried to put some space between us and the Tyrant, the distant stomp of his footsteps served as an ever-present reminder that we were never really safe and couldn't just take our time and explore at our leisure. In all honesty, it was quite overwhelming, and that's exactly what fans of Resident Evil and survival horror as a genre want from this remake. If you're feeling cool, calm and collected all the time, you're not where the developers want you to be. They want you rushed, harassed, terrified and not thinking clearly. And when the Tyrant's around, that is exactly where you're at. The only thing you can do in the face of this unstoppable force is put as much distance between you and it as you possibly can, and just hope that this buys you enough time to figure out the path forward. Even then, sometimes, as with our demo in control of Ada Wong, once the Tyrant shows up, there is no hiding from him. He just slowly marches towards you while you frantically try and open a door or overload a piece of machinery. He's in no rush to get to you because he knows he will eventually, and that is incredibly unsettling. Featuring an enemy like this also makes for some great emergent moments that aren't pre-planned or pre-scripted. Mr. X showing up at the literal worst possible time is palpably awful, and you really can't help it just sending you into a blind panic no matter how many times it happens to you. You'll just turn and run in the opposite direction and pray it doesn't lead to a dead end. You can usually pinpoint roughly where he is in relation to you by listening for his huge thundering footsteps, which echo off the walls and ceilings of the RPD station. But sometimes, he'll take you by complete surprise. You'll round a corner and he's just there, flanked by 2 Lickers for good measure. The fact that he's drawn to gunshots also means that if you get yourself cornered by zombies or Lickers, you're faced with an impossible no-win choice. Run and risk being shredded, or put down the threat closest to you and just hope it buys you enough time to escape. One thing the Resident Evil 2 remake understands is there is nothing more frightening than the unknown. So it's a good thing that, even if you know the original like the back of your rapidly decomposing hand, there are still going to be plenty of surprises waiting for you back in Raccoon City. Are you excited about what you've seen so far? If you'd like to see and hear more from our time spent playing extended gameplay sections for Leon, Ada and Claire, click the video that's on screen now. Or check out one of our other RE videos instead. There are a lot of them. If not, no worries. Subscribe if you'd like more from us at Eurogamer, and we'll see you in the RPD. Bye.
Well, you bastard, if you hurt her.